We get to see the maple trees, maple sugar on the maple leaves. We got the biggest wheat fields growing tall. In Canada, where we see the reversing falls. In Canada, we get to see them all.
Good day, eh?
Hey there, everyone. So this is it. We're in the home stretch. Monday will be the elections day for Canada, the last day of voting, and then the results will be called later that night. After a snap election was called and a whole whirlwind month of campaigning, Canada's about to find out if we're going to get a new party in charge with Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, or if the Liberals will hold on to power with their new leader in Mark Carney. And with a record 7 million plus turnout in early polls, even before all of the parties had released their platforms, it seems Canadians are eager to ensure we have a government that's ready to go on day one to take on our domestic issues as well as the existential and economic threat of the tangerine toddler-in-chief. As Mark Carney says, is Pierre Poilievre the person you want across the table from Donald Trump? This is a time for experience, not experiments. Pierre has had real trouble differentiating himself from the MAGA comparisons. When asked to his face whether he is just Trump light, he pivots away and starts talking about needing more oil and gas development. In other words, drill baby drill. Not very effective way to appear non-Trumpy. Well, a lot of people are predicting a Liberal majority. This would be an unprecedented thing with a nearly 15-year run of Liberals in charge, and with a majority this time, possibly. That requires 173 seats, and the NDP have lost nearly half their support over the last few months, from 29% in the last election to just 14% today. Might partly be due to their leadership and Singh teaming up with the unpopular Justin Trudeau government to push through some programs and delaying calls for a non-confidence and a federal election sooner. Well, Jagmeet Singh defends this decision, saying that it was necessary to push through programs like dental and eye care, dental and vision care, as well as other things. But now it's looking like it's a fight for the NDP to even retain an official party status if they don't get enough seats. And if it does, they may retain party status. They may need a new leader, since Singh is at risk of losing his own seat in Burnaby Central.
Yvonne Stackelberg covering the NDP campaign. Leader Jagmeet Singh is on his final push for votes in Southern Ontario and is standing behind his decision to not trigger this election sooner. The New Democrats supported the Liberals for more than 2 years in return for programs like dental and pharmacare. Last fall, Singh ripped up the agreement. The NDP threatened to vote down the minority government, but never did. Singh says it was because he couldn't stomach the idea of a Conservative majority government. He says he was also buying more time so Canadians could start to receive the health benefits the NDP had fought for. He felt that would make it harder for any future government to take them away. But criticism of Singh's decision to keep the Liberals afloat has followed him, while leader Mark Carney is literally following Singh's campaign route. Both are now in London, Ontario, as Carney makes a move for NDP supporters.
Well, he's got his pension now. He can retire. Some revelations were made today or recently that he had apparently had a credible death threat against him. He didn't elaborate, but there was something that came out where he and his wife decided they wouldn't be scared away from continuing with politics and campaigning. So we'll find out more about that soon enough. And the Bloc québécois might pick up a few seats, but those NDP voters tend to go Liberal. And Bloc leader François Blanchet ruffled some feathers after he described Canada as an artificial country. Blanchet said in French on Thursday he felt he was a member of a foreign parliament. And on Friday morning at a campaign stop in Shawinigan, Quebec, Blanchet added another layer, saying, "We are, whether we like it or not, part of an artificial country with very little meaning called Canada." Okay there. He continues, "It's a foreign parliament because this nation is not mine," Blanchet explained. I feel no more at ease in the Canadian Parliament than Alberta Premier Danielle Smith would in Quebec's National Assembly. Okay. Well, just a few years ago, around 2017, Quebec saw quite a strong push for independence, but more recently, the idea of separatism has taken a backseat to the economy for many Quebecers. And Alberta has seen a resurgence of their own separatist movement, no doubt due to the influence of their Maple MAGA leadership and echoing their slogans and pipe dreams of reform with no real platform or economic plan. And Mr. Carney described their plan as a joke that was written on a napkin.
We are creating $500 billion of investment in this economy over the course of the next 4 years. That sounds like an enormous number. It is an enormous number. And the vast, vast majority of that investment comes from companies like Marmon, our big investments in clean and conventional energy, our investments in auto, our investments in housing and beyond from the private sector, but with a clear directional plan. The Conservative plan makes it up. It literally makes it up. It says that growth will come from somewhere, even though there's no plan to address the biggest risk to our economy, the U.S., even though their tax cut doesn't arrive for 4 years, even though their costing numbers are far too low, even though their reductions in spending don't appear. And on top of that, they divide Canadians into two. If you're at home and you don't have your children in a $10 a day daycare, if you're not taking advantage of dental care, if you want to watch the CBC or Radio Canada, c'est fini avec les conservatives.
It's over with the Conservatives.
So, look, it's very different. I would, if you want to compare economists, why don't you look at what Mike Moffat has said today about the costing of the Conservative plan.
Well, there's even the possibility that Pipsqueak Pierre could lose his own seat, which would trigger a leadership for that party. This is the first election in his riding since the boundaries were redrawn, and even with a last-minute rally in Ottawa to galvanize the Team Trump base, the Liberal candidate has been gaining support in the past couple of months, quietly campaigning on the ground there while Pierre's doing his right-wing podcast interviews.
And joining us now is CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos. And Vassy, I just want to go back to what Abigail said in her report. How vulnerable is Pierre Poilievre in his riding of Carleton?
Well, Omar, I think even the fact that the prospect is being floated that he could lose this seat that he's held for 2 decades so concretely is significant, right? It says something about the state of the race more generally, but there's also a lot of spin going on from everyone, right? So we wanted to find out ourselves. We went right into the riding. We sent a crew to ask people on the street who they're voting for, and I got to tell you, it was split right down the middle. Take a listen.
The polls suggest that this riding might actually be tighter than it has in previous elections.
I don't believe the polls.
You don't believe it?
At all.
You think that Pierre Poilievre's going to win this one?
Yeah, I believe that.
I have a Liberal sign. I'm hoping for Bruce Vanjoy to win. It'd be nice to have a change in this riding.
I still wish Pierre Poilievre will win, because we need a man like that.
There's reports suggesting that this riding might be tight for the first time in almost 20 years. Do you believe that?
It feels like it. We're going blue. We're going blue in this town.
Who do you plan to vote for on Election Day?
Bruce Vanjoy.
Just a quick footnote to all of this. In that riding, Omar, there are 90 people, thanks to an electoral reform protest group, on the ballot. Elections Canada has just said that they will allow for an additional 6 hours to count those votes early.
And typically, according to the Act, it's 1 hour before, so quite an extension there. The vote now is just 4 days away. How close is the race looking?
Well, according to our pollster of record, Nanos Research, it's as tight as it has ever been. Literally, the two parties today, the Conservatives and the Liberals, are within the margin of error of each other. It shows, I think, that message around change that the Liberals have, the Conservatives have really finessed over the last week is starting to drive a little bit of a hole into the primary pitch from the Liberals, which was all about Trump. Ultimately, it will not only be a contest between those two ballot box questions on Monday, but between those two parties as well, Omar.
Current polling by Ipsos and Nanos shows a record number of turnouts in many locations, including Alberta, particularly in Calgary. Polling in Canada tends to be pretty accurate, and currently the Liberals are ahead with about a 3-point lead, and this could mean either they're strongly supportive of the Conservatives or strongly against them, and only the results will tell us for sure. But Alberta could turn red or purple.
The idea of Alberta's autonomy has been around for almost as long as the province itself. But where does it come from, and why in the last decade has it been gaining support and structure? Well, here to help us explore this is Matt Solberg, a partner at New West Public Affairs and a fellow person from Brooks, Alberta. So great to see you this morning and to meet you, Matt.
Yeah, great to be here.
Listen, we've heard talks of separatism in Alberta before. Some of our viewers are going to remember back to the 80s and the let the Eastern, freeze in the dark bumper stickers on the cars. But I think a lot of Canadians don't understand where this sentiment and this resentment comes from and why there's this generational mistrust of the Liberals. Can you explain that for us briefly?
Sure. Well, I think some of it's cultural. I think Alberta as a province was born about 100 years ago without having access to resource rights that other provinces did. And I think over the years, various issues have flared up where it's been a bit of a reminder to Albertans that perhaps we don't have quite the same deal in Confederation that other provinces have, or perhaps at least that's the perception. And so I think it comes back to policies that many Albertans feel are impacting our ability to grow our economy, create jobs, and get our resources to market.
Okay, well, we've seen Alberta Premier Smith talk about a national unity crisis if Alberta's wishes aren't met by this next Prime Minister. So what's different about the separatist conversation this time around that we haven't seen before?
Well, I think you add on the fact that this will be, the third election coming up here, where there's a lot of campaigning left to go, but if trends hold, where Albertans may not get the federal government that the vast majority of Albertans vote for. And so I think that's part of it. I also think that the existential threat that our country faced in the form of threatened tariffs from the United States adds a level of urgency to all of this. And then, you just look back a couple of years over the COVID years and the activation that we saw from angry Canadians around that. And I think we're just setting ourselves up for, as the Premier called it, a bit of a crisis here in our country.
But yet, this is still a tight race to the finish for both main parties, and we'll be glued to our screens for the results to be called Monday night. I'm gonna predict. I'm gonna predict it's gonna be a very quick election night. It's gonna be called early. I'll probably be live streaming. In fact, I will be live streaming on Monday night for the election results. And I'm gonna be getting my popcorn. Hope to see you there. Elbows up. Let's do this.
Stay tuned for more on Political Drain Canadian Edition.
Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.